Good afternoon. This is Thursday evening prayer reflection on February 24th, and I will be talking about the Gospel according to John, chapter 3, verse 16 to 21. John chapter 3 has at its center the very good news of the Gospel of Jesus Christ. It displays elaborately the regeneration process and its relationship to our healing. Basically, I really wanted to look at when Jesus says you must be born again. What does that have as a relationship to our own healing, especially our inner healing? So it's not easy to notice how the two are connected until we read this verse 17, John chapter 3, verse 17. It says, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world would be saved through him. So the verb that is conjugated here for saved is sotei. Just so I don't mix the meanings here, I won't also define healing so that we can understand its relationship with salvation. Healing means the restoration of wholeness to the person or the restoration to the life of the community. That's why Jesus' typical words to those who were healed would typically be, your faith has saved you. Go into peace. And we find this in Luke chapter 8, verse 48. Healing here means salvation and peace. I can see this very well in the word, a Hebrew word, shalom, which I think comes closer to this definition. Its meaning conveys peace, harmony, wholeness, completeness, prosperity, welfare, and tranquility. But let me come back to the verse 17. Why would the verb to condemn be used in that verse? Why? Why suggest that the Son of Man did not come to condemn the world? Was there any opposition that he had come to condemn? Well, why use that verb? That's where I came asking the question, why would you phrase it that way, using the verb condemn? And here is my supposition. Could it be that the coming of Christ could be perceived as condemning because it shines true righteousness, while the eyes of the beholder knows very well inside the heart that he or she does not measure up? And I think this problem can or may result with us. We generally don't like anything better than ourselves, which was well observed by Susan Kraus, who is a Belgian expert in psychology. This is what she wrote, and it's interesting. You might find it like a much more a stretch, or you might find it's much closer. When in private or make a comment, I would appreciate hearing from you. Most people do prefer to see themselves as better than the average person, which of course is an impossibility. One reason we don't like hearing others brag in relative terms about their quality or qualities is that, as the Belgian team notes, we are always processing information about other people through the somewhat egocentric eyes of our own self-images. For example, if your best friend's mother is constantly trying to show how much better a cook she is than everyone else, you won't go over there for dinner, no matter how good the food actually is. Her tendency to self-promote puts your own mother, or perhaps you, in a position of seeming inferior. For her part, she won't see how much she's offended you and will be puzzled when you turn down invitations that seem so well intended or intentioned. Why did I give this example? Because I think it might be true that most people react negatively to anyone with an attitude of holier than thou. And I'm not saying that that's what the image of Jesus projects. But could it be that some of Jesus' audience was facing this same issue? If so, we are more likely to understand this behavior even in our own day. The point of this verse, though, is not superiority. I am assuming that it can be perceived as so. So the point of this coming of the Son of God into the world was to save it through him, Jesus Christ, I mean. What a surprise! It is said, as you know, that we often judge people before we get to know them. But here, the real purpose of Christ coming was to heal us, to restore us to wholeness, peace, tranquility. That same word that Jesus used when he says, peace I live with you, my own peace I live with you, shalom I give you. That's what Jesus came for. So it's clear here that restoration is needed when there is brokenness. So there is no need to deny in our own lives that our lives are broken, mainly by sin in our worlds, both our inner world or outer world. We're talking about inner world when we're talking about inner turmoil. You may not be saying much, but many things may be churning inside a person's life. It is very possible. And there are also the outer world when some people, mainly in families, relationships are strenuous and hard, and your outer world is kind of in a shamble, in a chaos, and there's always, it's hard to live in an environment like that where relationships are strenuous and where it's very, very hard to talk civil with each other, and there's always tensions, and that is not an atmosphere of peace, of growth, of conducive of harmony and tranquility and shalom. That is not. But what Jesus brings to us is that peace, that shalom, that inside peace that heals us, both inside and outside. So, sin creates a wound in us. I watched a movie called The Shark. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's The Shack. The Shack. Right, it is The Shack. I watched it with great interest, and this is what I took from it. It appears that the way we treat our children can have long-lasting repercussions. The more rough or adverse you are with the kids, the rougher they could be in their adulthood relationships. Sin is the worst. It can wiggle itself into the next generation, and the wounded the parents, and the wounded the children and the grandchildren, and so forth. This is a sad affair that unfortunately is a reality now, as well as it was in the Bible stories. I can mention a few: David, Tamar, and there's many broken families in Bible stories in the Old Testament. The good news of this chapter 3 of the Gospel according to John is the regeneration process that Jesus was explaining to Nicodemus. You must be born again. That is, first, we must live a new life. Birth is the beginning of life. Yesterday we were having a youth group, and a question was asked about what is the best thing that happened to you, and one of the team members said, my birth. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't born. So that was interesting. So birth is the beginning of life. So to be born again is to begin anew. Perhaps what this might mean for us is, I am willing, O Lord, to begin anew in my relationship with you. I want to start beginning. It's just not now. It may be even tonight. Oh God, I want to begin anew with you. It's moment, oh Lord, I want to be filled with you every day. But secondly, we must have a new nature, new principles, new affections, new aims. We must be born from above, Jesus says to us. And Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 1 to 15, chapter 1 verse 15, that Jesus Christ came to seek and to save the children of men from the death and to recover them to life. So I was reading my Bible commentary, Matthew Henry, that says that as sinners, we are mortally wounded. It's more as if we have this sickness that is incurable. It is the same, like we are dying, basically. We are mortally wounded. So Jesus Christ came to save us by healing us from the inside. Just like the Old Testament story that mentions how Moses lifted up the serpent in bronze so that those who were poisoned by the real snakes, that the poison would get out. They would focus on what Moses was holding, so that the poison of the snakes would get out of their bodies. It is that simple healing of just focusing on that object, and then the poison would come out of the bodies of the Israelites and they would be healed. So the comparison here was that in the same way, the Son of Man will be lifted up so that all those who believe in him, those who focus on him, may have eternal life. That inner healing, this story is found in verse 14 and 15 of chapter 3 of John. So basically what this particular image portrays is that inner healing is possible through Christ. Not only inner healing, but also outer healing. It is very possible. So believe in Jesus Christ and his Father. Focus on him. The poison of the world's serpent ways will come out of us. Be blessed.